You there? Yes. You, this message has found you. And I need you to know something deep in your spirit. This is no accident. You didn't just stumble onto this video. You didn't find it. It found you. Heaven itself has a way of delivering exactly what your soul needs, at exactly the moment you need it most. And right now, in this very moment, heaven is speaking directly to you. So before we go any further, let me ask you, have you ever felt hated for no reason? Have you ever walked into a room and felt the atmosphere shift, even before you said a word? Have you been rejected by people you thought would stand with you? Misunderstood, even when your heart was nothing but pure? Have you ever sat in silence asking God, what did I do wrong? Why do they treat me this way? If you've ever asked those questions, this is your confirmation. No, you are not imagining things. No, you are not overthinking. And no, you are not crazy. What you've been experiencing is not ordinary rejection, it's spiritual resistance. Because you, my friend, are chosen. And the favor, the anointing, the light that God placed inside you, it's visible in the spirit realm. Even if you don't fully see it yet, the enemy does. That's why the battles started early. Do you know what it means to be chosen? It doesn't mean life will be easier. In fact, it often means the opposite. It means you were handpicked by God to carry a light so powerful, it exposes what others would rather leave hidden. It means you were entrusted with a purpose so significant, darkness saw you as a threat the moment you took your first breath. It means you were set apart not to be popular, not to be praised, but to stand out in a way that carries heaven's message wherever you go. And that light you carry, it does something. It shifts the atmosphere. It disturbs comfort zones. It makes people uncomfortable, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence itself is a mirror. It forces people to see the places inside themselves they've been avoiding. And instead of facing their own darkness, they choose the easier option, they reject you. But what if I told you their rejection was actually your protection? What if every closed door, every unfair rumor, every time someone walked away was not a curse, but a divine hand removing what could not walk with you into your calling? Would you still waste time wondering why they didn't like you? Or would you finally understand you were never called to fit in? You were called to stand apart. Chosen ones don't follow the crowd, they lead the way. They break cycles, they challenge systems. They walk into rooms carrying answers to prayers people haven't even prayed yet. They speak truth, even when it's unpopular. They see what others ignore. They hear heaven's whisper, even in the middle of the noise. And that kind of light, it doesn't always get applause. Sometimes it gets attacked. And that's why you've been through what you've been through. That's why you felt different, even as a child. That's why you never quite belonged. Not because something was wrong with you, but because something was always right about you. There's a divine mark on your life. A calling you didn't ask for, but one you can't escape. And the enemy knows that if you ever fully step into who you really are, you won't just survive this life, you'll shift generations. So today, I need you to make a decision. Will you keep shrinking yourself, trying to blend in with people who were never meant to understand you? Or will you finally stand tall, shoulders back, knowing that being different was never a curse? It was your calling all along. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." But do you know what that really means? It doesn't mean weapons won't form, they will. It doesn't mean people won't misunderstand you, they will. It doesn't mean you won't have lonely nights, you will. But it means None of those things have the power to cancel what God has already ordained over your life. You are protected, covered, and chosen, not because of your perfection, but because of God's purpose inside you. So I ask you, if you believed that every battle you faced was preparing you for something greater, would you see your scars differently? Would you wear them with pride, knowing they are proof you've survived everything meant to destroy you? Would you still beg for acceptance in places God was trying to remove you from? Or would you finally walk boldly, knowing you are a carrier of heaven's light and you have nothing to prove to anyone? You there, yes. You, this is your divine wake-up call. This is not just a video. This is a spiritual appointment. This is your confirmation that you were born for something bigger than survival. You were born to shift atmospheres, break chains, and release truth. And if your spirit knows this message is for you, I need you to do something. Go to the comments and type 77, 111, or 333. Let it be your declaration, your spiritual signature, your way of saying to heaven and earth, I know who I am now. I am chosen, and I will not shrink any longer. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and tap the bell icon. This isn't just content. This is community for the chosen ones. A place where truth flows freely, where we speak to your spirit, not just your mind. This is a safe space where the chosen gather, where light converges, where we prepare for the assignments God has placed on our lives. Don't walk this path alone. Stay connected. Because in the very next part of this message, I'm going to reveal exactly why the enemy has fought you so hard, and more importantly, what God is about to release into your life because of every battle you've survived. Are you ready? Let's step in together. There's something you've felt your whole life, though you may not have had the words for it. That unspoken sense that you just don't fit. Even as a child, you knew you were somehow different. Not better, just different. It was the way people reacted to you, even before you spoke. You could walk into a room and the air would shift. You could feel it. Some people were drawn to you instantly. They could see something in you they couldn't explain. But others? They bristled. They whispered. They watched you with suspicious eyes, waiting for a reason to dislike you even when you gave them none. At first, you thought it was just bad luck. Maybe you were too quiet. Maybe you were too confident. Maybe you just didn't know how to play the game the way others did. But over time, the pattern became undeniable. No matter how kind you were, no matter how much you tried to blend in, rejection seemed to follow you like a shadow. I need you to hear me clearly, that rejection was never random. It wasn't a personality clash. It wasn't because you were flawed. That rejection was a spiritual reaction to the light inside you. What you carry is visible in the spirit realm, even when you can't see it yourself. Your light, the one God placed inside you before you ever took your first breath, it's disruptive. You shine, not because you're trying to, but because light can't help but shine. And that light, it exposes everything hidden in the dark. It exposes insecurity, deception, and unhealed wounds in the people around you. And for those who have chosen to make peace with darkness, your light feels like an unwanted alarm clock, waking them up when all they want to do is stay asleep. This is why, from childhood, you've experienced something called spiritual resistance. It looks like bullying, gossip, slander, sudden betrayals, silent treatments, and being misunderstood over and over. It feels personal, but it's not. This has never been about who you are as a person. It's about what you represent. Your presence announces the arrival of truth. You walk into a room, and suddenly every mask starts slipping. every hidden motive starts shaking. Every lie starts feeling uncomfortable. Not because you said anything, but because your spirit speaks louder than words. And that makes you a threat, not just to individuals, but to systems. Systems of fear, systems of control, systems of generational bondage. You were born to break cycles, to challenge the status quo, to wake up people who have been spiritually asleep for generations. You don't just ask uncomfortable questions, you carry uncomfortable answers. And that's why the rejection came so early. Because your assignment was never to fit in. Your assignment was to stand out. Let me take you deeper. In every generation, God raises up voices who refuse to be silenced. People who cannot be bribed, bullied, or brainwashed into silence. They see through illusions. They feel the atmosphere shifting. They carry heaven's blueprint, even when they don't fully understand it themselves. And these people? They have one thing in common. They all know what it feels like to be hated for no reason. It's the Joseph story, the Esther story, the David story, the Jesus story. Every person God ever used mightily first had to walk through a season of unearned hatred and rejection. Why? Because before God promotes you, He sets you apart. Before God uses you to free others, He frees you from the need for human approval. Before God crowns you with spiritual authority, He strips you of every false identity that made you think you had to earn your worth. This is not just your story. This is the story of every chosen one who came before you. Think about Jesus Himself, the light of the world. And yet, what happened the moment He started shining? Religious leaders plotted against Him. His own town rejected Him. Even His disciples misunderstood Him. Why? Because light exposes darkness. And when people have spent their whole lives getting comfortable with the dark, the arrival of light feels like an attack. You, my friend, have that same light inside you. That's why the enemy spotted you early. That's why your childhood felt heavier than most. That's why even in church circles, you've been misunderstood. You didn't just walk into places, you shifted the atmosphere when you walked in. And that made people uncomfortable. Some sensed God in you and were drawn to it. Others sensed God in you and ran from it or tried to snuff it out. But here's the part I need you to remember. Their rejection was never your fault. In fact, it was your confirmation. Heaven's fingerprint is on your life, and hell has been trying to smudge it off since the day you were born. But here you are, still shining. Let me tell you about a woman I once knew, a woman named Deborah. She never tried to stand out, but she couldn't help it. Even as a child, she saw things in people no one else saw. She would call out truth gently, but directly, and it made adults nervous. Teachers labeled her too sensitive. Friends called her too much. Even her own family sometimes told her to just be normal. But Deborah couldn't turn it off. She could feel spiritual shifts like changes in the weather. She could sense when someone was lying, even when their words sounded perfect. And because of that gift, a gift she never asked for, Deborah spent most of her life feeling like an outsider. Until one day, God spoke to her heart. You weren't made to fit in, you were made to see what others miss. What they call too much, I call anointed. What they call weird, I call chosen. What they reject, I have set apart. That word changed everything for her. And today, I need you to hear the same truth. You were never supposed to blend in. You were never meant to fit the mold. You were born to stand apart because you were born to shine. So after today, you will stop asking, why do they hate me? That question belongs to your old self. Instead, you will stand tall and say, of course they hate me, I was sent here to disrupt their darkness. You will no longer shrink your light to make others comfortable. You will no longer apologize for being who God made you to be. Because here's the truth. The brighter you shine, the more you expose. And the more you expose, the angrier darkness becomes. But light doesn't apologize. Light doesn't negotiate. Light doesn't hide. Light shines. So let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them misunderstand. Your light is not a mistake, it's your assignment. And their rejection, it's your confirmation. You are chosen. You are set apart. And no amount of hate can dim a light God Himself ignited. Have you ever looked at your life and wondered why nothing about it has ever felt simple? Why you couldn't just settle down and be content with the ordinary? Why your spirit always seemed restless, even in seasons where everything on the outside looked fine? If you've ever felt this quiet ache, this yearning for something more, let me tell you that ache wasn't emptiness. That was the whisper of destiny calling your name. There's a reason you never fit into the mold. You were never designed to. From the very beginning, your life was never random. It was scripted with intention, authored by the very hand of heaven itself. Every heartbreak you've endured, every betrayal that cut you deep, every unexpected detour that shattered your plans, they were never accidents. They were chapters in a curriculum designed specifically for you. Because the truth is, you were never just living life. You were being prepared. While others chased after quick success, you were drawn to the deeper questions: why am I here? What is my purpose? What is God asking of me? You've been a seeker since childhood, haven't you? While the world around you craved comfort and entertainment, your spirit craved meaning. You could feel it, that there was something more just beyond the veil. And that longing wasn't a flaw. It was evidence that you were born carrying a divine assignment. This purpose, the one you feel tugging at your spirit even now, you didn't choose it. It chose you. Long before you knew who you were, before you even took your first breath, heaven placed a seal upon your life. A divine intention, a sacred calling, one that would make sure your life would never be ordinary. And because of that calling, your life has always carried a weight that felt both holy and heavy. That's why you felt so different from the start. While your peers could laugh easily at things that never sat right with you, you were always thinking deeper. While others could numb themselves with temporary pleasures, you couldn't shake the sense that there was something more you were supposed to do. Even as a child, you were drawn to hurting people. You felt the weight of injustice. You saw what others ignored. And you carried questions in your heart that no one could seem to answer. That wasn't overthinking. That was the voice of heaven's assignment calling you into awareness. You see, when God chooses someone, He doesn't just choose them for comfort. He chooses them for a mission to heal, to lead, to break cycles, to be a vessel of truth and restoration. Some of you were chosen to be healers, sent into families where brokenness has been passed down like inheritance. Others were chosen to be leaders, given the wisdom and courage to guide others out of deception and into truth. Some of you were called to break generational curses, standing in the gap to end cycles of addiction, fear, poverty, or abuse that have plagued your bloodline for generations. And here's the hard truth. Being chosen doesn't make life easier. It makes life heavier, because the greater the purpose, the greater the preparation. That's why your childhood was never lighthearted. That's why you learned how to sit with loneliness before you ever learned how to sit with success. That's why people misunderstood you, even before you knew how to explain yourself. Because God wasn't raising you to be ordinary, He was raising you to be a weapon in His hand. And weapons don't get polished gently. They get refined in fire. This is why, if you are truly chosen, your pain has always felt personal. Others could walk through the same storm and come out fine, but your storms hit your spirit. They left imprints. They shaped your very soul. Why? Because the depth of your calling required a depth of understanding that only suffering could teach. You were not just experiencing life, you were being forged. The betrayal wasn't random. It taught you discernment. The abandonment wasn't a mistake, it taught you how to stand alone. The rejection wasn't cruelty. It was heaven's redirection, closing doors that led to nowhere so you could find the door that leads to destiny. This is why chosen ones always come to a point of awakening, a moment where everything they thought they knew crumbles. They lose the identity the world gave them. The relationships they leaned on begin to shake. The false sense of control slips through their fingers. And in that broken, emptied-out space, something holy happens. They remember who they are. You are remembering right now, aren't you? That stirring you feel? That lump in your throat? That sense that I'm not just speaking to your ears, but to your spirit? That's because I am. This isn't new information for you. This is remembrance. Your spirit knew this long before your mind caught up. You are remembering that you were never just here to survive. You were sent here to fulfill a purpose so sacred, so weighty, so impactful, that hell itself has been trying to silence you since the day you were born. That's why you can't numb it away. That's why ignoring it only makes it louder. That's why, no matter how far you run, that voice keeps finding you in quiet moments, in midnight prayers, in unexpected conversations. Because you can't outrun what you were born for. I want to tell you about a man named Samuel. Even as a boy, he heard God calling him by name. In the stillness of the night, the voice came. Samuel, Samuel. The first time, he thought it was his human mentor. But by the third time, he realized this voice wasn't coming from earth. It was coming from heaven. And that's exactly what's happening to you. Your whole life, you thought you were just different. But the truth is, you've been hearing a voice that others couldn't hear. You've been hearing the call to rise, the call to awaken, the call to break free from smallness and step into divine purpose. And now that you remember, there's no going back. You can't pretend to be average anymore, because average was never written into your DNA. You can't settle for shallow relationships, because you were born for deep waters. You can't waste your voice on meaningless conversations, because heaven put a sword in your mouth. Now that you know who you are, you have a choice. You can try to run again, but every step away will hurt more than the step before. Or you can stand up, square your shoulders, and finally say, "Here I am, Lord. Use me." Because here's the truth. You were not chosen for comfort. You were chosen to carry heaven's purpose into the earth. You were not chosen to fit in. You were chosen to stand apart. You were not chosen to be safe. You were chosen to be dangerous to darkness itself. And now that you remember, you will never be able to forget. So rise up, chosen one. The whole earth has been waiting for you to remember who you are. Let me ask you something. When was the first time you felt like life was harder for you than for everyone else? Can you remember that moment? Was it on a playground, when you realized you were always the one left out? Was it at the dinner table, when your own family seemed to misunderstand you no matter what you said? Or was it later, when you stepped into adulthood and the weight of constant opposition followed you into every room you entered? Some of you have been carrying that question your whole life. Why does everything have to be so hard for me? Why does every door seem to slam shut? Why does every relationship turn into betrayal? But today, I need you to hear me with your spirit. What if I told you those battles were never evidence of your failure, but proof of your assignment? What if I told you the attacks weren't punishments, they were announcements, heaven's way of confirming to you and everyone around you exactly who you are? You see, the chosen ones don't walk through life unnoticed. Hell can always see heaven's fingerprints. Even before you understood your purpose, darkness could already sense it. The enemy studied you long before you studied yourself. He saw the potential inside you, the light God placed within you, and he knew if you ever discovered who you truly are, you would become a threat to every system built on lies, fear, and deception. That's why the attacks started early. Before you could spell the word destiny, you were already in a battle for it. Every insult, every rejection, every betrayal, they were not random. They were calculated. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on people who are going nowhere. The most relentless attacks are always aimed at the most dangerous threats. Do you understand what this means? It means you were feared in the spirit before you were even fully formed in the flesh. It means your calling is so significant that the enemy tried to break you before you knew how to fight back. That's why you were hit, before you even stepped into your purpose, because your presence alone was enough to shake the atmosphere. Picture a seed buried in the dirt. Before it even breaks the surface, the ground around it begins to shift. Rocks press against it. The weight of the earth tries to crush it. But the seed doesn't stop growing just because it's under attack. The pressure is proof that there's life inside. That's you. The pressure you felt your whole life wasn't a sign that you were weak. It was the world reacting to the power inside you, trying to suffocate it before it could bloom. And yet, here you are, still standing, still rising, still shining. Do you understand how powerful that makes you? Most people fold under the weight of even half of what you've survived. But not you. Every time they thought they broke you, you rebuilt yourself. Every time they threw dirt on your name, you grew roots deeper than before. Every time they tried to silence you, your spirit got louder. Why? Because you were never built to break. You were built to endure, built to shine, built to overcome. That's what it means to be chosen. It's not about living an easy life. It's about carrying a spirit that refuses to die, no matter how many times it's attacked. You have the kind of spirit that turns pain into wisdom, betrayal into strategy, and rejection into redirection. Every battle was secretly training you. Every enemy was unknowingly sharpening you. Every storm was heaven's classroom, teaching you how to walk through fire without losing your flame. Think about it. If the attacks were really meant to destroy you, why are you still here? After everything you've faced, after every sleepless night, every tear-stained prayer, every moment you wanted to quit, you're still standing. Why? Because the enemy's plan failed. The only thing those attacks accomplished was proving that you are exactly who God said you are: unbreakable, unstoppable, and undeniably chosen. Let me paint this even clearer. Imagine a soldier returning from battle, armor dented, sword chipped, scars covering their skin, but their eyes burning brighter than ever. That's you. You've been through wars most people never see, but here you are, standing tall, not because the battles were easy, but because your purpose was greater than the pain. So now, I ask you, will you still waste time wondering why they don't like you? Will you still beg for a seat at tables God never meant for you to sit at? Or will you finally own the truth? They didn't hate you because you were wrong. They hated you because you were chosen. Every attack was proof you carry something heaven needs and hell fears. Every rejection was evidence that you were never meant to blend in. Every betrayal was confirmation that you were set apart for a purpose too big to be understood by small minds. And every scar you carry today is not a mark of shame. It is a divine receipt that says, survivor, overcomer, chosen. And now, I need you to do something bold, something prophetic, something that marks this moment in the spirit realm. If you know this message is your truth, if your spirit is burning right now with the weight of confirmation, I want you to write this in the comments. Every attack is my confirmation. I am chosen. I am unbreakable. I am unstoppable. Let it be a declaration. Let hell hear it. Let heaven record it. Let your own soul rise to the truth of it. Because today, you stop explaining yourself. Today, you stop apologizing for your calling. Today, you stop shrinking to make others comfortable. From this moment forward, you walk like someone who knows the attacks only came because the assignment is that great. Now stand up, chosen one. There is no weapon formed against you that will ever prosper. No lie they told will rewrite your destiny. No betrayal will cancel your purpose. No rejection will strip your worth. Because the one who chose you is still on the throne. And the fact that you're still breathing is proof that the story is far from over. Every attack is confirmation. Every scar is proof. Every rejection is prophecy fulfilled. You are chosen, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can change that. Now go ahead. Type your declaration. Every attack is my confirmation. I am chosen. I am unbreakable. I am unstoppable. Let the earth shake with your truth. As we come to the end of this message, I want you to breathe in what has been revealed to you today. This is not just content you've consumed. This was a sacred unveiling. For many of you, this was the first time someone put language to what you've silently carried your entire life. The rejection, the betrayal, the isolation. It wasn't a curse. It was confirmation. You were never overlooked. You were set apart, not forgotten, but chosen. What we have walked through together in this message is the foundation, the unveiling of who you are and why the battles came so early. This message stood alone, complete in itself, a revelation you needed to hear in full. Because knowing you are chosen is the first unlocking of your spiritual authority. It answers the why. It settles the confusion. It confirms your identity. But identity is only the beginning. You see, being chosen is not just about who you are, it's about what you carry, and how heaven itself has surrounded you with divine favor and unstoppable protection to ensure that nothing, not hate, not betrayal, not spiritual warfare itself, can cancel what God has ordained over your life. That's why the story does not end here. In the next message, we are stepping into the weapons of the chosen ones, the divine strategies, the hidden blessings wrapped inside every rejection, the favor that follows those who refuse to shrink, and the supernatural covering that has shielded you, even when you didn't realize it. That message is not a separate video. It's the next chapter of this same divine appointment, a continuation of the unveiling. You've received the revelation of who you are now. It's time to receive the tools to walk in that identity with power. So I urge you, don't stop here. Don't leave this story half told. What heaven has started to reveal to you today will only reach its full power when you step into the next part of this journey. Before we part ways for now, I want to seal this moment in prayer, not from a distance, but standing shoulder to shoulder with you, as one chosen one speaking to another. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, we thank you for this divine revelation, for lifting the veil and allowing us to see the truth about who we are and why our path has been so heavy. We thank you for every rejection that protected us, every betrayal that redirected us, and every lonely season that pushed us into your presence. We lay down every false label we have carried, every doubt that made us question our worth, and every fear that tried to silence our voice. Today we rise in the truth. We are chosen, set apart, covered, and called. Father, prepare our hearts for the next step, the equipping. Give us wisdom to understand the weapons you've placed in our hands and boldness to walk in supernatural favor without apology or fear. Seal this truth inside us so deeply that no lie, no attack, and no spirit of confusion can uproot it. We declare today, no weapon formed against us will prosper, no plan of the enemy will succeed, and no voice of accusation will rewrite what you have spoken over us before we were born. We are chosen. We are covered. We are unstoppable in your name. Amen. And now, if this message spoke to you, if it felt like your spirit was being directly called out, I want you to step into this by faith. Go to the comments and boldly declare, I am chosen. I am covered. I am unstoppable. That's not just a comment, it's a public agreement with heaven, a contract sealed between you and your Creator. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and tap that bell, because this channel isn't just a platform. It's a sanctuary for chosen ones across the earth, a place where truth flows freely, where we sharpen each other, and where we prepare for the assignments heaven has placed on our lives. Stay close, because in the very next message, the unveiling continues. And what you discover next might just explain why the enemy has fought you so hard, and why nothing, absolutely nothing, will be able to stop what God is about to release over your life. The story doesn't end here. This was only the beginning.